Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Shahzadi Samra for the course of African Literature. In the course code is ENGL 4117. So the topic of this lecture is again Volsanka's The Lion and the Jewel. But in this lecture, I'll be telling about the critical analysis of The Lion and the Jewel. Some of the text I have extracted from the work, and I'll analyze that the chunks of the text, and in fact it is also falls under the category of social picture or social depiction of Volsanka, as how Volsanka has depicted the society in Lion and the Jewel. So it does fall in the category of both, like the critical analysis and the social depiction of the African society. Okay, so The Lion and the Jewel, it is about the colonial power, or it was basically written in the then published in 1991, the period in which Nigeria was facing the military rule, and Sanka depicted the socio-political instability of the society, and he also depicted that he reacted strongly, when the power is replaced in the service of vicious reaction, a language must be called into being which does its best to appropriate such obscenity of power and fling its excesses back in its face. So this was the reaction of the Soenka regarding the despotic rulers of the post-colonial era, and as this play, there are so many discussions have been made regarding the conflict between tradition and modernity, or in this play, and where the tradition wins over the modernity to the final action of the city. The play also presents the conflict between old ways and the new ways. Then it also shows that who is the winner. So many studies have been made about it, and in this lecture we are going to shed light I'm going to shed light on the critical aspects or the scenarios of this work. So moving on to this work, basically it is characterized by the the cultural conflict, ribald comedy and love. Ribald comedy means random, vulgar, or something like that, and where the old culture the old culture was presented by the uneducated people in the village, and the characters are led by the Baruka and Sidi. So, and the rest clashes with the new culture, new culture depicted by the Lakunle, who was the educated and school teacher by profession, and was very much influenced with the Western ways. So moving on to the topic is, let's see what things are present, and how he has depicted the picture of society, or how it can fall under the category of social picture, and let's also make the critical analysis of this work. The first one is complications. Complications basically confronted with complications, like how the readers are confronted with complications or the characters. So because the Lukunle, he is not particularly convincing representative of modern ideas. How? Because he misunderstands some of the books as he reads, and he believes to be true because of his set merits. For example, when he is wrong in saying that women brain is smaller than men brain, and then he is also much fascinated by the most superficial aspects of the modern ways of life, such like the nightclubs, the ballroom, the dancing, the open romance, some etc. So that is why we can say, like, it make things complex, that he is half baked, full of half baked modern ideas, which he exploits in denying to pay the bride price to CD. That is how first confrontation with the complication is about the Lukunle. Second one comes Baruka, who is also the village leader and chief. So he opposes progress because he believes that it destroys the variety of ways in which people live, and that he as well as Lukunle should learn things from one another. Because according to him, that if there comes the modernity in the village, it will destroy the living style or of the people. It will destroy their culture and their traditions. So somehow he was right. So Baruka is anxious enough to make Sidi as his wife, and here comes the love triangle of the city. Love triangle that is the in which the city, Lukunle and Baruka, they were involved, but finally Surari surrenders herself to Baruka. So it is miraculous to know that a young man, he fails before an old man in the game of love, and at the end Sidi willingly accepts Baruka. And she gives importance to Baruka over Lukunle as her husband. So it also shows that the city, she gives importance to the traditions over the modern ways, and it also shows the winning of the traditions over the modern ways, and it also shows one aspect, that how the modern man is shallowness of the modern man. And because if he has not wanted to pay the bride price of CD, that was because of his own personal reasons. So move on, and what those reasons could be, let's move on to the next. Traditional bride price. Bride price, Lukunle was the school teacher, and when he was teaching the class, when Sidi walks past carrying a pail of water on her head. So he is described as wearing threadbare and rumple clean English suit, that is a little too small for him. So he wears a tie that disappears beneath his waistcoat. Sorry. And his trousers are ridiculously oversized, and his shoes are blanco white, as I described in the last lecture about the symbolism. The blanco white, black and white, the combination of his dressing. So he comes out and retorts, saying that he told her not to carry loads on her head or on her neck, like maybe shortened. So he also tells us not to expose so much of her cleavage with the cloth she wore around her breast. So she says that it was too inconvenient for her, and she just scolds him, and saying that village thinks of him as the stupid person, and Lakunle says that he doesn't care about it. But Lakunle also insults her, saying that her brain is smaller than his. So he claims that his book says so, that women brain are smaller than the men brain, but there isn't any such thing. But it means that he was misinterpreting the Western books, Western ideas. So he deeply admires Western culture and seeks to emulate, often in a comical, inadequate effect. This work also falls in the category of the farcical comedy. So he is portrayed by Sonika as clumsy in both actions and words, and he was also in love with CD, and but he has not married her because she demands that he should pay the traditional bride price. So something he refuses to do. He says that I have told you and I say it again. Means this was how he used to speak. I shall marry you today, next week, or any day you name. But my bride price must be paid. It was Siddhi's response that her bride price must be paid. But I tell you, Lakunle, I must have the full bride price. Will you make me a laughing stock? Well, do as you please. But Siddhi will not make herself a cheap bowl for the village spit. They'll say I was no virgin, that I was supposed to sell my shame and marry you without a price. Here we can see that the importance of the traditional bride price. And when I told you about the symbolism, they are also mentioned about the bride price. That why the bride price was so important, and she has also mentioned the reason that they will say I was no virgin. So that was also the reason she wanted him to pay her bride price. And she says that she doesn't care for his love, but eventually we find out that Siddhi doesn't marry Lakunle because he refuses to pay the price, and because he thinks that it is an uncivilized or outrageous custom. He says that, ignorant girl, can you not understand? To pay the bride price would be to buy a heifer of the market stall. Would be my chattel, my mere property. So here he is basically the insulting or making her realize that what does the bride price can mean. So the reason between both opinions, because Lakunle was saying bride price through the lens of Western culture, and while Siddhi was saying bride price through the lens of the African culture, through the tradition. So both have a different context and both opinions are different. And both are right. As far I'm concerned, my opinion is concerned, I would say that both were right, because if he thinks that it would be like to that she will ultimately become her property, and he can do whatever he wants to do with her after paying the bride price. Because it would be in the case that as if he has purchased something, and he used the word heifer for that, any animal, that he just purchased any kind of animal from any stall or a thing or any product, and after some time it will be of no importance. But Siddhi says, she tells him that if she married him without the bride price, people will jeer at her, people will laugh at her, because they will think that she was not a virgin. And Lakunle, he further professes that how he wants to marry her and treat her just like the Lagos couples I have seen. But CD doesn't care, so she tells him that she finds the Western customs of kissing repulsive, and she also tells him that not paying her bride price is mean and miserly. So she was just uneasy about the modern ideas of Lakunle, and especially the role of woman and the duties of a wife. So the language Lakunle uses, that he drew from his books, like ragged books, mainly the Bible and the dictionary, adds to this the uneasiness. Like she feels uncomfortable by the scorn with which he is regarded by the others, villagers. So she also hates his miserliness, and in which she considers that a cheating way mean and miserly, because he was not willing to pay the bride price. Another reason, apart from being miser, he could have paid the bride price if he had money. He was mere a school teacher, and he didn't have that much money to pay the bride price, and Sidi was the jewel of the village, so her bride price, it must be like quite heavy amount. So he was just unable to pay that. If he had money, it might be possible that he could have paid the bride price, but he was just using the Western idea, Western culture as a shield to just save his self-respect, or to manipulate the situation. So the next comes the polygamy, and there is another one. Marry who? You thought, did you really think that you and I? Why do you think that after him I could endure the touch of another man? Here, this is taken after the scene when Baroka trapped Sidi, and he just raped her, and after that, when he offered her to marry, like Lakunle offered Sidi to marry him, and in this case he didn't have to pay any bride price. But Sidi says that it is impossible for me to marry you. The reason for this, what do you think that after he has touched me, or he has done things with me, how can you think that I would marry you? Like, it also shows their notion towards the chastity, the importance of the chastity in this culture, and but until the end of the work, Soyinka didn't disclose that whether the bride price was paid by Broca or not, as her spouse. But after the confrontation, Lakunle, as I told you, he accepts to marry her, but it is only fair that we forget the bride price totally, since you no longer can be called a maid. Maid means virgin. So but even then she just sticks to the to her tradition, and she actually brings out the culture of the tradition based on rigid society. Like her lost virginity, her lost chastity, it leads her to marry the old Baroka as he was 63 years old. So it also shows the rigidity of the culture, and if she could have married Lakunle after getting raped or losing chastity in the hands of Baroka, the people would spit on her, and she would still be considered as the non-virgin. So that is why she preferred to marry Baruka in order to save her self-respect. So chastity, it could be considered like one of the main reasons that prevent her to accept the proposal of Lakunle. And it also shows the mental setting of the women in the African society. So it implored them to live with only one man. I can why did you think that after him I can endure the touch of another man? Means they were inclined to be with one man only. But on the other hand, in the Western culture, it isn't the case. So they tend to consider the African woman, they tend to consider it a part of their old tradition, and like it shows the Siddhi, you may say, that is the strong representative of the tradition. Baruka is not as strong. He also uses tradition to manipulate the situation, but Siddhi is not like that. She was just adhered to her customs, to her traditions. And Lakunle, he also uses the Western culture for his own personal benefit. So that is how we can see or we can say that there is much importance to the African culture. They give much importance to chastity and to the bride price, and bride price also meant for them as saving a woman, or binding a contract to save the woman from getting abused or something like that. So moving on to the next is the practice of the polygamy and monogamy in the African society. There are many inconsistencies in the Lakunle which also may irritate Siddhi. So although he claims to detest Baruka as habits and powers, in fact he secretly envies them. And in his envious behavior, it is being shown in the one speech where he wishes that if he had Bale's privilege of marrying many wives. The polygamy is a familiar tradition in the older backward societies, whereas monogamy is a modern phenomenon. So this practice of polygamy, it is justified by the law in Nigeria, and it is also the prominent feature of African family. Some Arab countries, while the people of rural areas, they take many wives and concubines as a sign of their prosperity, and except prosperity, it was as prosperity in the sense their wealth and their physical strength. So there is critic who says that he expresses his opinion. Toing Falola is a critic who expresses his opinion regarding polygamy. He says the function of the family as an economic unit of production. I'll discuss it later. So the polygamy, Lakunle, when he says that he wishes that if he had the Bale's privilege of marrying or having concubines, it shows his contradiction with himself, by trying wholeheartedly to uphold the modernity, and in modern culture, modern phenomena, they give importance to the monogamy. So ironically, he cannot obviate his native identity and demands, because he was African or Nigerian by nature. So that is why he was unable to hide that aspect. He wanted to have many wives as Baruka or the village Bale. So even he seems to forget his principles at the end of the play. when he eagerly embraces her. The thought that since Sidi is no longer a virgin now, he cannot be asked to pay bride price for her. So that is why he says that, but I obey my books. So man takes the fallen woman by hand, and ever after they live happily. Moreover, I'll admit, it solves the problem of bride price too. So the man takes the fallen women by hand. It is showing the two perspectives. First one is that he was being sympathetic towards her, even though she didn't ask for sympathy. He was being sympathetic, or he was showing mercy. By marrying a non-virgin, he was just trying to have an upper hand. So on the other hand, he didn't have to pay the bride price, reason that he was just financially unable to pay the bride price. So this thing that it will come out blessing in disguise for him, it comes out as that, but it is not true, as she refuses Lakunle as if she were in love with Baruka from the very beginning. So she initially refuses Baruka's offer to marry him, and this offer arrives when she is under the influence of the magazine brought to the village by the white photographer. So because of that influence, she just refused rejected the Baruka's proposal. And Baruka, on the other hand, the reason for sending the proposal, because he has he was aware that now Sidi has become the jewel of the or the ballet of the village, and he should decorate, he should have that jewel as the chief of the village. So he was considering it his right for having that jewel of the village. So next comes as the talk about the polygamy and the monogamy ends on a point that about the magazine. So the next point, the assumed self-importance, it is also connected with the notion of the photography or the magazine. When Sidi noticed her picture in the magazine, so she was quite excited about it, and she was asking from the people that, have you seen these, have you felt the glass smoother but far than the parrot's breast. The fact that her photograph, it covers 3 pages, and the Baruka's photograph, it was only covering the corner of a page. Seems to her it was for her that she has more importance than the Baruka, and she was thinking that she is far more important as compared to the Baruka. So her confusion in choosing between the Baruka and Lakunle indicates the young generation's confusion, or the nervousness about making a decision, or the wavering to choose between the older values and the new things, new alluring things of the Western culture. So it was creating a confusion for her, and this confusion shows the confusion of the younger generation, that they are just confused that what they should adopt, should they follow the traditions of their elders, or should they make their own way, or should they pave their own way by following the Western culture. So, and she just although she was excited, and she assumed that she assumed herself important, but on the other hand, she wasn't important. She was an object, or became an object of object that anyone can consume. by having that magazine. She was just misinterpreting the idea or the meaning. So because she was not quite cunning, it may be one reason. So the next comes the conflict between tradition and modernity. We already have one lecture, we had one lecture about the conflict between tradition and modernity, and it was also depict the social picture of that era, and it also shows the Burqa, who was showing the tradition, and like Lakunle was showing the you may say the modern aspects, and there was a conflict, there was war, an undeclared war between both. So and Soyanka showed the war by the characters of Lakunle and Burqa, but on the other hand he was trying to show the conflict or the clash between the traditional ways or the modern ways, and how the people were confusing the traditional ways with the modern ways, and if they were adopting the modern ways, they were still not they were not fully aware of the modern ways. So as I mentioned earlier, that Burqa, the like half-baked modern ideas. So like the Burqa's quality, Burqa was cunning and like strength. These qualities, his cunningness and discrimination and strength, these are shown as the advantage. And Lakunle is provided with a number of opportunities to display his talents, but he just fails. And what happens at the end, that Siddhi just makes a decision to marry the Burqa, and and it shows that that was the clash when resolved. It was clashed when she chose the traditional one over the modern one, and here the clash resolved because people were considering one thing. All the people were considering or giving importance to the traditional ways, but they also wanted to adopt the modern ways. As the Siddhi, she also wanted to be modern, but after the incident, when she lost her chastity, after that movement, she had to marry. Out of, you may say, like helplessness, out of misery, she had to marry Burqa. So although they wanted to accept the modern ways, but they had to go with the traditional ways in order to secure their place in the society, in order to secure their image in the society. So that is how the conflict between there was a war that was resolved by the action that Siddhi took at the end. So next comes the winning qualities. What kind of winning qualities are present? Basically the winning qualities that are present in the work, they are also on the part of the tradition or the modern ideas. So on Burqa's part, we see that certain qualities of like slyness in him make him win Siddhi, which are not manifested in Lakunle. So from the very beginning, she cannot tolerate Lakunle, and till the end she is just consistent in expressing her hatred to this callous chap. And as all the village titled him as the madman, like everyone thinks that he is crazy, Lakunle, and because of his speech, because of his half-baked modern ideas and half-baked modern speech. So that is why everyone, because people were unable to understand him, and he was just unable to make them understand himself. So that is why there was a clash of understanding as well, or the communication gap. So on the other hand, when she is seduced by Burqa, she decides to choose one single man whom she would let herself touch in future, and that single man should be Burqa, who has already touched her. So the Bane impresses her with his skill at wrestling. He pretends not to know about the offer of marriage and implies that Shizuku is always trying to make matches for him. Yeah, he just put all the blame on his first wife. So moreover, he cunningly appeals to her loyalty to the village ways, and he praises her depth and wisdom too. He just flatters her, like with his talk of having her portrait on the stamps, and all the time he talks to Siddhi in a soothing tone, with the most flattering seriousness, as well as stressing the responsibilities of the village head. So these things he was just trapping the city, and she, as a simple girl, as a village girl, she was just unable to understand that cunningness, and she just falls victim of that. So Lakunle, on the other hand, obviously he lacks such kind of foresightedness, and therefore the city cannot get reliability as well as practicality in him that she saw in the Baruka. As he was the chief. Second, he showed that how he cares about his village. Third, he shows her that he can have her stamps or portraits on the stamps. He just seduces her in every possible way. So those were the winning qualities that were present in the Baruka. And those winning qualities, you may say, are also present in the traditional ways. Although there might have some the Western ideas might have some winning qualities, but Lakunle, the character, he was just unaware of those. He was just unable to compete that, as he was just considering himself superior in ways in his own shell. Like he was living in his own shell, in his own world, where he considered himself superior. So he might have had those qualities, but he was just unable to use that, and he just didn't know how to use those qualities. So these are the things, and there are many other things that I guess I should stop here, because it is also it is already of the 40-minute length till the lecture. So I would like to split it, and in the next lecture I would discuss the other half of this part of this question, like the critical analysis. Till now and for this, like, it is all, I guess. And now I have also put references from where I have collected that data, and I could have discussed the remaining part but it will make this lecture quite lengthy. It will be more than of 1.5 hour, or it will be of 1.5 hour. So it will become difficult to listen such long lecture. That is why I am dividing into 2 parts, splitting this lecture, and the references of the lecture are the same. And for this lecture, till the first part, you may say, in the first part we discussed about the traditional bride price, the practice of polygamy and monogamy, then the assumed self-importance. Then we also discussed the conflict between tradition and modernity, and the last where I just I stopped, it was the winning qualities, the last one. And in the next lecture I would discuss the half of this part. So for now, just try to grasp this lecture. It is all for now. Thank you. Stay blessed.